right, Mr. G here. We are going to add a second part. Now, again, we have to take into consideration what we've discussed before concerning motion, concerning intervals. We are going to avoid seconds, fourths, and sevenths as far as harmonic intervals go. And we're going to utilize contrary motion, oblique motion, similar motion, and parallel motion. So let's get started. What I'm going to do here, even though I've got the score for a violin quartet, or I'm sorry, a string quartet, I start out by placing my second voice on the same staff as the first voice, mainly because it's much easier to see how the notes interact with each other. Once I get the part the way I want it, second voice the way I want it, I'll transfer that second part to any one of the other voices. This is a trick that my professor taught me because I was having all sorts of problems with voice crossing and things that I just wasn't seeing when I used a four-staff score. He suggested I put all the notes on one staff so I can see really quickly how they relate to each other. So we're going to start with the second voice. A lot of the rules apply to the second voice that apply to the first voice. We start on a tonic. We end on a tonic. And just like before, I am going to start at the back and work my way towards the beginning. So that means, if you remember our first lesson when we first wrote our minor mode piece, the note just before the last note, in this case our C sharp is what we decided on, can either approach the last note from a half step below like we did here, or a full step above, an E. When you're writing your second voice, whatever you did in your first voice, do the opposite. So instead of I approach the top voice from a half step below, I will approach my bottom D from a full step above. What that means is, now, you're going to hear this. All right, see how that works? Now, from this point on, skipping and stepping is still involved. But now our note choices are going to be pretty selective because we have to avoid seconds, fourths, and sevenths. Now, I'm going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to start from there. I took a pretty serious leap from a D down to an F. I don't want this second voice to go way, way down into the basement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize oblique motion. I'm going to keep the D here. So oblique motion. This voice stayed the same. This voice went down. Now, next, I'm going to utilize something called parallel motion. I'm going to go to an E. Now, parallel motion is best applied to thirds and sixths. Octaves, fourths, and fifths are to be avoided when it comes to parallel motion. Parallel motion only works for thirds and sixths in our criteria right now when we're writing for two voices. So only do parallel motion if you're doing thirds and sixths. Now, our next note, we went to a B flat here. What do I want to do here? Well, I could keep an E, but now E and B flat, that's a tritone. And right now I want to avoid dissonance. I want thirds, fifths, and sixths. So this is a diminished fifth, so that's can't use that. I can't go to an F to B flat because that's a fourth. Really, G is it. I could do that. I could come down to a D, but I've already used D twice here, so I don't want to make the second part that boring. So I'm gonna go up to a third because thirds are always good. So there's parallel motion again. That's okay. And now our next note, we went to an A here. Well, I can't go. I could go to a unison. That's okay, but you really want to avoid unison when you're writing two parts. Leave unison or octaves for the beginning and the end. So I can go to an F, which would be an okay choice. I can't go to an E. I can't use similar motion here because E to A is a fourth. So you can see how when you're writing two parts, sometimes your parts get written for you. Our biggest choice, and I can't go down to a D because D to an A is a fifth, and that's similar motion, both voices moving in the same direction into a fifth. Again, we want to avoid that. So really, my only choice is an F. It's no big deal. It's going to be great. Then we have, we skipped up to an F. What can I do here? Well, generally speaking, I want to keep within an octave. Let's see what we got here. I could go, can't use a G because G to an F is a seventh. Can't use an A. Well, I could. A to F is a similar motion into a sixth. That would work. But I would like, contrary motion is always a good thing. Now, honestly, I'm going to go down to a C here. Only because I can. Now, that's more than an octave between this C and that F. But I'm going to be transferring this part to another instrument. So I'm going to call that okay right now. Generally speaking, you want to keep it within an octave. And if there was just two voices that were going to happen, that's what I would do. But I'm going to go to a C here. Next up, we just went F down to an E. I can go up, contrary motion to a D. No, that won't work. Similar motion to an E, going up to an octave. Again, contrary motion to an octave would be okay, but I want to avoid octaves. Octaves make it sound like the bottom falls out of the piece. I'm going to use oblique motion again. Keep that C here against that E. And it looks like I'm done. We have contrary motion for C up to E, down and there. So let's have a listen to see what this sounds like. I like it a lot. So now we've added our second voice. I'm going to go to the next minor mode piece that we wrote. I'm going to do the very same thing with that. So hang on. I'll be right back. Mr. G out.